It's a Friday night, and I'm in the bar with my best friend John, and we're watching the game. And somewhere around the second inning, he opens up his wallet, and without looking at me, he takes out a slip of paper, and he slides it across the bar to me, like I'm a spy or something, and he's handing me the nuclear secrets of his country. John and I have known each other since we were 5 years old. We grew up next to each other, and we were incredibly lucky because we lived in a neighborhood that had a lot of kids close in age who all liked to play sports outside. Every spring, we would take spray paint, and we'd spray paint lines on the street so that we could play touch football. We'd also spray paint bases so that we could play baseball. But on those days when we couldn't find enough kids for those games, we would retreat to our backyards where we would play wiffle ball. Wiffle ball is the game you play with a yellow bat and the white ball with the holes on one side. And if you throw that ball, it makes a distinctive sound. And to me, it's always sounded magical, almost like a baby dove giggling. And the bat, when you would swing and miss, it would make the sound that gives the game its name, whiff. And the best part about the game is that the equipment is cheap. So in some ways, wiffle ball is the perfect game. And every backyard had its own rules, which just added to the fun. In some fields, if you hit a home run and it went over 2 fences, it would be an automatic grand slam, no matter who was on base. At another field, you pitched against the garage, but you had to be careful because you didn't want to break the window. And at a third field, the whole back stoop was the strike zone, which led to argument after argument. I didn't play organized sports when I was a kid. It just wasn't for me. And I didn't play high school sports either. Wiffle ball was the only game that I played. It was the only thing I was good at, and it was massively important to me. And I figured somewhere along the time I was 10 or 11 years old that the only thing I needed to make my life complete was to pitch a no-hitter. And this is because wiffle ball is a pitcher's game. No one who's ever played wiffle ball says, I can hit any pitch you have. Everyone who's played wiffle ball says, I have a pitch you just can't hit. I had a pitch you couldn't hit. I would throw it really hard, right at your head. And while you're standing there trying to decide whether or not to duck, it would suddenly dip and then curve into the strike zone. It was beautiful. As I got older, my friends, they started spending less time in the neighborhood because they would go play their high school sports. So there were fewer opportunities to play wiffle ball. And I realized that getting that no-hitter was going to be a little bit harder. What had started out as kind of an abstract notion, it became something, I don't know, maybe it was kind of an obsession. I wanted it that badly. Now, I could have just forced my younger sister to play against me, but that wouldn't have been the same thing, because I knew that the no-hitter had to come against decent competition. I'd come close many times, usually against my friend John, but there'd always be that one hit late in the game that would just break my heart. And as I got older, I graduated high school and then went to college and then I got a job. I still carried around in the trunk a yellow bat and a white ball, just in case a game broke out. But I realized that my opportunities were slowly slipping away. Now John and I are in our late 20s. We don't play wiffle ball as much as we used to, and we probably played each other about 1,000 times in our lifetime. But we still try to do it as much as we can, even though sometimes when we play, it feels a little bit vestigial or childish, which is why we don't really like to talk about it. It's like when you were a kid and you had a crush on Marsha Brady, but you didn't want anybody to know about it. So we'd only talk to each other about it. And I opened up the piece of paper that John gave me, and it's a little article from the newspaper that he ripped out. And it says that there's a wiffle ball tournament the next day in a town 20 miles away. We both look at each other because we know we have to play. The next morning, we get there early because we're excited and we're nervous, and because as soon as we decided to play, we left the bar early so that we could get some sleep. And we go through our warm-up exercises, which consists of some light jogging and some stretching, things we never would have done when we were 10 or 11 years old, but which we now have to do. And while we're doing that, our opponents show up, and our opponents are 2 teenagers, and we have to beat them in order to get to the next round. And their pregame warm-up routine consists of sitting on the bleachers and eating buffalo wings while drinking Mountain Dew out of 2-liter plastic bottles. After I finish my warm-ups, I start throwing some warm-up pitches, and I throw a lot more than their pitcher does. And I'm feeling good because I know how good John and I are, and I know that we have experience, and I know that we have wisdom on our side too, and oh, I think we're better at getting up early on Saturday morning than they are. And then the game starts, and we lose 4-0. It was over so quickly, I didn't even really know what had happened. And I walked to the car, and I tried to think of a silver lining of some sort. And I went over the game in my head, and, I had a couple of good hits, but I just didn't pitch that well. I had too many walks. And John and I get to our cars, but we linger for a little bit because we don't really want to leave. We have chores that we have to do when we get home. I have to mow the lawn. I have to do some weeding. I have to grill a sensible dinner and then probably fall asleep on the couch later. And then I realized something. Hey, John, I didn't let up any hits. It was all walks. I threw a no-hitter. John looks at me and he laughs, but there's no humor in his laugh. And he gets into his car and he drives away. I can still hear that magical sound that white ball with the holes in it makes when I throw it, that baby dove giggling. But I know that my wiffle ball glory days are long past. But I tell myself, at least I have that no-hitter.